considering sailing on the Icon of the Seas or an Icon class ship and always wanted an honest review? Not one of those reviews done by an influencer during the inaugural sailing who was invited on board by the cruise line just to post a glowing review. Well, then, this is the video to watch. I'll share with you my unbiased review about the top 5 things I hated and the top 5 things I loved about Icon of the Seas. My name is Amy, and I love to travel, and I love sharing my travel experiences with you. I sailed on the Icon of the Seas for 7 nights in February 2025 out of Miami. And this was just 1 year over the inaugural sailing date, so the ship was still relatively brand new. I did sail alone on this trip, and I stayed in a spacious interior cabin on deck 11. Now, this was near the forward elevators, and I really did love the location of my room. It gave me easy access to the Aquadome and the Overlook, as well as the music hall, the Royal Theater, and my favorite, Central Park. Now, this was my first time sailing Royal Caribbean, and I'm really glad I gave it a try. If you're not familiar with the Icon of the Seas, as of this recording, it's Royal Caribbean's flagship vessel, and it's the largest passenger cruise ship sailing the ocean. It will soon be joined by the Star of the Seas, launching in August of 2025. The Icon of the Seas was launched in January 2024 and holds approximately 7,600 passengers, plus 2,300 crew members. Now, they do like to advertise that it holds 5,300 people with double occupancy, but there were way more people on my ship than that. It's an absolutely massive ship, and I walked nearly 30 miles while I was on board. Now, this ship does include Royal Caribbean's signature Central Park and Royal Promenade, which I absolutely fell in love with. Plus, it has venue after venue for entertainment with over 40 restaurants, bars, and lounges. There's so much to see and do on this ship that I was entertained all of the time. If you're considering sailing with Royal Caribbean, just remember this cruise line does cater to families, so there are usually a lot of children on their sailings, especially while sailing the Caribbean. Now, I have lots of opinions about my experience on board, so let's get right to the top 5 things I hated about Icon of the Seas. I'll save the things I loved for the end of the video. Now, up at number 5 on the list, the pool deck. The sailing I was on had over 7,300 passengers and was nearly at capacity. The pool deck was ridiculously crowded. Every single chair always had a towel or a person, and every single hot tub and pool was overflowing with children. I was quite surprised that there were so many children on the sailing because in the US, it wasn't a holiday and the kids shouldn't have been out of school. But I just picked a bad week. Now, all of the decks were always covered with water, which is really to be expected, but it made me incredibly nervous as I've had a bad slip and fall on water, so I was really uncomfortable walking around on the narrow pool deck while people were constantly bumping into me, so I tried hard to stay away from that area. And I felt it was a disadvantage to have the pool deck split across the two halves of the ship. While I absolutely love the concept of the open ship, it just didn't leave a lot of room for walking around the pools. Prior to my sailing, I kept seeing all these videos about the swim up tonic bar, and it was filled with just a few adults at a time, but I actually didn't realize which pool it was until after I got off the ship, because that pool was 100% filled with children all of the time. I think it's because of the location. It's pretty close to a set of elevators, so it's probably just the first pool that the kids see, and it was rather shallow, so maybe they just thought, oh, look, this is the best place for us. Number 4 on my list, I can't believe I have to say I hated the bed setup in my room, especially since I was in a spacious interior room, which had about 25 square feet of extra space. For some unknown reason, they crammed the left side of the bed up against the far wall. Now, that left me only about 4 inches of space to get in bed on the left side because that's where I usually sleep. And as a plus size traveler, this was really uncomfortable, and I didn't appreciate being smashed up against the wall. So I ended up just crawling in from the right side of the bed for the rest of the sailing. And dear cruise lines, why are the nightstands so freaking small? There was almost no room for my cell phone or glasses, and I could not fit my CPAP safely on the nightstand. I ended up putting it in bed with me, and that made me a bit nervous. Now, I think if I sail again, I'll ask them to separate the beds and put both nightstands together between the beds if that's possible. Now, number three on my list was a big disappointment for me. I was really hoping to enjoy this area, but the adults only area, the hideaway, was incredibly too small and very much overcrowded. I did notice that the ridiculous lounge beds in the pool took up way too much room, and only a handful of people could actually use the pool at one time. And nobody was really swimming, they were just standing around holding their drinks. I also did not see a way to get in the area without the use of stairs, and it didn't seem to have any disabled access. I had a knee injury at the time and couldn't use the stairs, so I wasn't able to access the area. I know this is not a concern for most of you out there, but I do like to point out where I see accessibility failures. And I really do wish Royal Caribbean would come out with an adult only ship because I love the layout of the ship so much, but I was overwhelmed with all of the children. And I wish they would take the children's boardwalk area and make that area an adult's playground. It has the most amazing views on the ship, and it would be nice to have a giant pool there, as well as restaurants and bars to support it. I really do think they're missing out on an amazing opportunity by not including at least one adults only ship in their fleet. I know the line focuses on families, but children don't pay the bills. And I think adults would be inclined to spend more money on board if they were sailing without their kids. Number two, I hated the price I paid. Can we just be real for a minute and talk about how ridiculously overpriced the Icon of the Seas is? I paid nearly $570 per night, which is outrageous, especially since I waited an eternity to book this cruise until they had a reasonable sale. Usually, for one person in an interior cabin, I was consistently quoted $6,500, but I waited until it went down to about $4,000. It's nearly the most expensive vacation I've ever taken. My 12-night Norway cruise edged it out by only $300. And I was especially put out about the price after having to deal with the number one thing I hated about Icon of the Seas. Frankly, the food was just bad. Royal Caribbean, seriously, what are you doing? Now, I have a lot to say about this, so just bear with me. I paid way too much money to be fed such poor quality food. I know about a year ago they changed up their food on all of their ships because ever since then, everybody has been complaining that the quality has significantly gone down. And I have heard those complaints now even extend to the specialty dining restaurants that you're paying extra money for. I think one of the things that really bothered me too was the enormous amount of food waste I saw. So many people were ordering desserts and snacks and not liking them. I saw staff over and over taking away full trays of food. I don't know in what universe this makes any sense. Royal Caribbean, you are disappointing your customers with this low quality food. Now, I ended up finding one or two things that I stuck with throughout the cruise. I ate a lot of chicken nuggets and tater tots from base camp, and those were really great. And I routinely had the carved roast beef and salad from Park Cafe. Now, there were a lot of grab and go food available at the Pearl Cafe and the Park Cafe, but I'm not a huge fan of sandwiches that have been prepared hours, if not days in advance, and have just been sitting around. I did try out the grab and go fruit because I thought it would be a great option, but the fruit was frankly inedible. I threw most of mine away, which was really disappointing. I was on a standard Caribbean sailing, and I'm not really sure where they got the fruit, but they shouldn't have been serving it, and it was the same fruit that they had in the buffet, and hardly anybody was putting it on their plates. Now, talking about the buffet, I'm not a fan of buffets, so I only went there twice, and I thought it was just awful both times. I think what made it worse was when I walked into the foyer, it smelled like wet dog, and it was about 100 degrees. I'm not sure what was up with that, but when you walk into a food establishment that smells, it just really turns your stomach. Now, I did eat at the Aquadome Market, and I loved the concept, and the first time I enjoyed the flavors, but it was just so repetitive and average quality that I didn't really want to eat it a lot. And I really think the worst offender was the main dining room. I ate dinner there only twice because both times I had to send my entree back and order something else. And sending back an entree is something I rarely ever do. I just suck it up and eat my food. Now, I will say I really did enjoy the French onion soup. It was pretty spectacular, and there was a super tasty baked Alaska. I also tried the dining room twice for breakfast, and I was forgotten about both times. I came in at the end of service, so I'm really not sure if that had anything to do with it, but the breakfast I was served was subpar. I ordered poached eggs and I got one poached egg and one egg yolk. I'm not sure how they managed that, but that's what I was served. And my eggs were served on an untoasted English muffin with the thinnest slice of ham known to man. I think I could actually see through it. I had a much better breakfast at the Hilton Garden Inn that I stayed at the night before the cruise. Now, as far as accessibility challenges, as an overweight and vertically challenged cruiser, I struggled with the dining room chairs. They had these really tall arms that prevented me from getting in the chair easily, and they were so heavy I couldn't pull them out to get in properly. So I resorted to crawling over the arm of the chair in my dress, but when I sat down, I couldn't pull up my chair to the table. It was always a bit of a comedy show when I was trying to sit down or get up from the table. Now, I know a bunch of you are ready to start furiously typing in the comments about how I should stop being so picky about the food because they enjoyed their food. But honestly, I paid a lot of my hard earned money to be on that ship, and I don't think it's an unreasonable expectation to be fed food that I enjoy. I wasn't expecting five-star dining, but I also think it should be better than a high school cafeteria. Ultimately, what it boils down to for me is that it really made me feel as a guest that I wasn't valued and that I wasn't worth the money or effort to be provided reasonable quality food. I frankly felt ripped off. But don't let these things that I hated deter you from trying this ship. We all have different preferences, and maybe none of these things would bother you. So let's move on to the five things I loved about Icon of the Seas because some of them were just so great that I would definitely want to sail again on this class of ship. Number five, beverage stations. Now, I know this one sounds kind of weird, but it's really important to me because I only drink water and I needed to have a convenient and preferably free water source available. And after spending 19 nights on the Norwegian Prima, where I struggled to find free water to drink, it was really nice to have ice water available at the Aquadome Market, which was the closest to my room, and the Pearl Cafe at most hours of the day. I didn't have to go all the way to the buffet or pay for a bottle of water at the bar. It was great to be able to pop into one of those places and fill up my cup for the evening and take it back to my room. Now, I did notice that there were also plenty of juices, teas, and coffees available at the beverage stations, and there were tons of freestyle soda machines throughout the ship. And number four, the grab and go food. I thought the concept of this was really great, and this is the first ship that I've ever sailed that had this option. And as I previously mentioned, I didn't like a lot of the prepared sandwiches, but it was nice to be able to grab vegetables, a salad, or chips and take them wherever it is I wanted to eat them. I think this concept could really benefit from better quality and tastier food options, though. Now, I think Sorrento's kind of fits in the category of grab and go food. It was a great place to have a quick snack late at night when you're done watching the karaoke or dueling pianos just across the hall. Number three. Now, this is something that really sold me on Royal Caribbean ships Central Park. There is nothing better than a stroll through Central Park at night with the breeze through the leaves and the wafting of music through the air. I really enjoyed having a stroll and relaxing on a bench, but I do wish the park cafe was open in the evening. I would love to have been able to sit outside on the patio and enjoy a meal. The only food options I saw on Central Park were the specialty restaurants that required an extra fee, but I thought it was really great to have them all in one place. Overall, the atmosphere in Central Park was amazing, and it was truly my favorite place on the ship to hang out. Number two on the list, the overall layout of the ship and all of the venues. After being on the Norwegian Prima the prior year, it was such a relief to see so many places to sit with mostly comfortable seating. There was no end to the amount of lounges, bars, and venues to relax in. I did notice there wasn't a game room though, so I did see that most of the people who needed a table used the schooner bar. I thought the seats in the Royal Theater and Absolute Zero were comfortable and wide enough to accommodate my frame. And because of the style of arms, if someone was sitting next to me, I was not encroaching on them. I really thought the comedy club was well laid out and packed in a ton of people in the small space. I would say that Dueling Pianos is the one place that needs to fix their seating, as a lot of the chairs were broken and were supremely uncomfortable. There were also several spots scattered around the outside on the decks that had comfortable seating away from the pool area. That made hanging out outside in the evening really nice. And I thought the hidden gem of this ship was the surfside area on deck 7 meant for the kids. At the very rear, past the kiddie pools, there was a bank of chairs on either side that looked straight into the ocean. It was a really great place to be in the evening or at sail away. Since it was usually after 7 p.m., the whole place was empty. And when we docked on Coco Cay, I was the only person in that area for hours, other than the employees. It really provided a nice quiet area outside, away from all of the crowds. Now, my number one top love about the Icon of the Seas was the entertainment. There's always so much to see and do that I wore myself out with FOMO. I saw all of the shows offered in the Royal Theater, which were excellent. The Wizard of Oz was really well cast, had excellent costumes and set design, but it was a little long, and some of the children did start getting restless. The show got a standing ovation, and that was really well deserved. I wasn't quite sure if I was going to enjoy the effectors. It seemed a bit of a cheesy concept, but I really think it went over well with both the kids and the adults. It had a good storyline and great costumes, and the drone show was pretty fascinating. I did see both ice shows in Absolute Zero and watched the aqua action in the Aquadome Theater. I think the ice shows and the aqua show are pretty innovative and provided quality entertainment. I saw the Journey cover band in the music hall, as well as other live performances throughout the ship, and I have to say, Royal delivered the best entertainment that I've ever seen at sea, and it really made my trip. I can't say enough about how well done it all was, and they should be proud of what they offer. So, if you're wondering if I would sail this ship again, I definitely think I would try the other two in this class in the future before coming back to the Icon. But I truly did fall in love with the Royal Promenade in Central Park, and I would choose Royal again for this layout. Because these areas were large, I really didn't feel like the ship was crowded, but everybody just must have been out on the pool deck because that was seriously crowded. Now, all in all, I had an amazing time on the Icon of the Seas, but I don't think it's a relaxing vacation style ship. There's just so much to see and do on board that I kept myself too busy and didn't get the downtime I needed for fear of missing out on all of these wonderful things that I paid a ton of money to have access to. And I was really surprised how overwhelmed I felt on the pool deck. There was not a spare inch of space anywhere in any pool or hot tub any time that I was outside. It was so overcrowded with children, and I wasn't expecting that in February. Honestly, there were so many people that I really avoided the pool deck at all costs, except to eat at base camp. Their chicken tenders and tater tots were pretty darn good. And I was also surprised by all the young children that were running loose throughout all of the ship at all hours of the day without supervision. It's not something I've seen before on any other ship, and I'm not sure if it's just a thing on Royal Caribbean. And lastly, I think the pricing for this class of ship has gotten a bit out of hand. It's not a very good value, especially for a solo traveler. It does offer a very unique experience, but there are a lot of other options out there at a much better price. Fortunately for me, if you watched my previous videos about casino offers, you'll know I was able to book deeply discounted cruises on several of Royal Caribbean's other ships for my next few vacations. I will be sailing on an Oasis class ship, Wonder of the Seas, in early fall. I have 14 nights booked on the Freedom of the Seas in late 2025. I'll definitely be filming my time on these two ships, and I can't wait to share these adventures with you. So be on the lookout for my future cruise videos. If you've ever been on the Icon of the Seas or any other Royal Caribbean ship, make sure you drop me a comment below. I would love to know what you think about them. And as always, if you have any questions or want to say hi, leave me a note in the comments. And if you want to help me grow my channel, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more content like this. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I wish you happy cruising.